you. So good afternoon. This is the Town of Rocky Mountain House regular council meeting for November 7th of 2023. I'm going to call the meeting to order. 2.1 Acknowledgement of Indigenous Peoples. The Town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. 3.1, we have a public hearing today. I hereby declare the public hearing for bylaw 2023/13 open. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to the Municipal Government Act in order to consider the proposed bylaw 2023/13, a bylaw to amend the Municipal Development Plan bylaw 2020/20 for Northwest 34-39-7-W5 from local commercial and neighborhood residential to highway commercial. And a bylaw to amend the North Area Structure Plan 94/01LU for Northwest 34-39-7W5 from residential and highway commercial to highway commercial. And a bylaw to amend Land Use Bylaw 2020/19 for Northwest 34-39-7W5 from Future Development FD District to Highway Commercial HC District. And, last one, a bylaw to amend Land Use Bylaw 2020/19, amending the Highway Commercial HC District by adding freight and transportation depot to its list of discretionary uses. So, at this public hearing, the public will be allowed to make presentations to council, and all persons present who believe that their interest in a property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Those who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw may address the council by clearly stating their name and address. Then they may give the benefit of their views concerning the proposed bylaw. Should council require any clarification on any issue raised by the public, council will call on the staff to further clarify the matter. The staff's comments will be limited to technical matters and should not be considered as support for or in opposition of the development. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council members today is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Any person who wishes to present a written submission to council may do so. All those submissions will be retained by the secretary, and copies of the submissions will be available upon request after the hearing. So the secretary would be either of these two, this lady in the black right here, Tracy Breeze, if anybody has written submissions. And so now I will ask administration to introduce the bylaw. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council. The town received an application for the land use bylaw rezoning of Northwest 34-39-7 west of the 5th. The civic address on this property is 7215 60th Street. The application was to rezone from Future Development District to Highway Commercial, with an additional amendment to the Highway Commercial District, adding freight and transportation depot to the list of uses. As other statutory plans were also affected, we've included as well the Municipal Development Plan, the North Area Structure Plan as well. First reading was given on October 3rd. Letters were mailed to adjacent residents and agencies on October 4th. An advertisement was placed in the Mountaineer on October 11th, 18th, and 25th, providing notice of the amendment in the public hearing on today's date. Financial implications, there are no financial implications. Organizational, the bylaw amendments constitute part of the regular work duties for staff. Just doing a brief review of the summary. The report is available online if people want more detailed analysis. So I will kind of summarize the points that are included in the report. Under the relationship to and compliance with approved statutory plans and council policies. Under the intermunicipal development plan, the subject parcel is designated as residential as well as commercial on the southeast portion. The IDP primarily describes that within the town's boundary, commercial and residential development shall be based on the policies of the town's municipal development plan and applicable area structure plans. Any amendment to the IDP for this parcel would need to be reflected in any future IDP updates. As per the IDP, the town will refer the proposed amendments to Clearwater County for comments, which was done as one of the agencies outlined for notification. Under the municipal development plan, the subject parcel is residential and commercial, the designation. The MDP notes that Highway 11 and 598 commercial corridor shall be the primary highway commercial area within the town. The highway commercial designation would require that where necessary, adequate buffering between highway commercial and adjacent residential areas shall be provided to minimize noise, traffic, light, and visual impact, and that when planning for development in the highway corridor, the town shall take into consideration parking space for larger trucks. The subject site is adjacent to a road and public area to the west. The subject site is also fenced and has trees along most of its borders, acting as a buffer to adjacent residential properties. The parcel is of sufficient size to accommodate parking spaces for larger vehicles or larger trucks, and currently does so under its current operations. The proposed designation would be consistent with lands to the north and with other properties to the south that are along the Highway 11 corridor. Any amendment to the subject parcel would require an update to the MDP. Under the North Area Structure Plan, this is an older plan from 1991 and was amended in 1994. The North Area Structure Plan designates this parcel as residential and highway commercial. Under the North Area Structure Plan, the plan requires that access to Highway 11 be limited, roads be designed to minimize through traffic in residential areas, and that residential areas be buffered from major roads and commercial areas. The sequence of other development is also noted that it will be guided by market demand and economics through the availability of municipal utilities expected to constrain development to the northwest of the Frisco Road and north and east of the lagoon setback on the east side of the road. There has been limited development in the North Area Structure Plan area since the adoption of the NASP. The land use bylaw currently zones the parcel as future development district. I've included in the report what the allowable uses under the future development district. So any use that lawfully exists is an approved use, but for any kind of expansion or change in use, they'd have to go through a land use bylaw amendment. Freight and transportation depot subsequently has been added to the list of discretionary uses under the highway commercial to accommodate the existing use. Freight and transportation depot is defined as a facility for the storage and distribution of freight and transportation shipped by air, rail, or road transportation, and includes a facility for the parking, storage, and servicing of vehicles used in the transportation or freight of passengers for commercial purposes. This was a use that's currently in our land use bylaw, and we felt it was the most appropriate for the existing use that's on the site. If approved, all highway commercial districts would allow for freight and transportation depot as a discretionary use. Under compatibility with surrounding development in terms of land use function and scale of development, There is residential development to the west and south of the subject parcel and highway commercial use to the north. The IDP, MDP, and NASP reference commercial development to the north as on the southeast portion of the subject lot. The IDP also references commercial development to the east, north, and northeast along the Highway 11 and 22 corridors. The subject site currently has dangerous goods located on the site, and according to the letter submitted by the applicant with an approval, under the proposed bylaw, there are plans to move the dangerous goods off-site to another location. Moving these dangerous goods off-site will reduce traffic to the site according to the letter submitted. A development permit would be required should the bylaw be approved, and it would be added as a condition under the development permit. Under traffic impacts, we've consulted with engineering and operations who have no objection. They've also noted that freight and transportation depot requires a heavier class of roadway than highway commercial. It is not of concern with this particular parcel as it is existing and it has gravel access. They are concerned that the change to the land use bylaw would encourage another highway commercial to develop into freight and transportation without the infrastructure to support them. But this concern could be addressed and mitigated through a development permitting process, which would be required for any change in use. Alberta Transportation has submitted its comments regarding the proposed amendments, which are included in this report. Subsequent development would require a roadside development permit from Alberta Transportation, which may impose additional requirements. The relationship to or impacts on services such as water and sewage systems and other public utilities and facilities, such as recreation facilities and schools. The Recreation Department has no concerns. There's no impact to the Recreation Master Plan and Trail Development Plan. Engineering and operation does comment as residential under the Riverview plans. The sanitary was planned to flow north to the proposed lift stations. Fewer properties would drain north if the current size only has buildings on the south portion. This would significantly reduce the size of the future lift station, but would reduce the properties contributing to it, raising the cost per lot for future residential development. Relationship to the land, right-of-way, or easement requirements. There is a deferred reserve caveat on the subject land in the amount of 1.472 acres, so any future subdivision would require that some of that land be taken for reserve. Effect on stability, retention, and rehabilitation of the desirable existing uses, buildings, or both in the area. The proposed amendment would contribute to the retention of business within the town's boundaries. Future development on the site would be reviewed through the town's development permitting process. The necessity and appropriateness of the proposed amendment in view of the stated intentions of the applicant. The necessity and appropriateness of the proposed amendment in view of the stated intentions is consistent with the plans for the future of the site. The required amendments would be required to allow for any future development on the site. Relationship to documented concerns and opinions of area residents regarding development implications. There are no records of resident complaints relating to the current operations on file. However, it is the town's desire to have the dangerous goods relocated off-site. 128 letters were sent out to adjacent landowners to collect comments, concerns, or support for the proposed amendments. To summarize the comments that were received back, of the 128 letters sent to adjacent landowners, the municipality has received no written comments. We did receive one telephone call that requested clarification on the matter. There was another telephone call that asked this writer to document her concerns, which I've included in the report. Basically, her concerns did outline that she had concerns about the impact to adjacent residents, impact to property value, traffic noise, what would be housed on site, number of employees, increased to safety and crime, and reduced available residential land if only used for highway commercial. Some of the concerns that she's noted, that this particular use has been on the site for a number of years with no impact. I did also receive a call yesterday from the president of the condo board He basically was calling for clarification on the bylaw. He had no concerns, provided that there was no increase to traffic on 71st Ave, and also commented that they would be happy if the tanks were moved off-site. The access to the site is from the north, so 71st Ave would not be the access to the site. Of the 24 agencies contacted, responses were generally no objection or no concern. Alberta Transportation noted no objection but added several conditions, such as a roadside development permit and compliance with their land use policies. Clearwater County has identified no concerns, outlining a commercial use zoning being appropriate, but noting that residential uses in close proximity may be in conflict. Clearwater County also mentions that the changes should be noted in any future IDP, should the bylaw be approved. And that's the end of my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great job. Does anyone from council have any questions about the report? Councillor Chappelle?
Your worship, if I could, please.
Yes.
I'd just ask about the two things. Number one, I couldn't find out what the size of the land was. I couldn't find that in reports. I'm not sure what that is. But my second question is, the subject parcel is indicated a quarter section of land. And in this case where it says, it gives a street address or a quarter section. And typically when we look at a piece of property, they've got a block plan and all the rest of that to have a legal address. That's what you sell by. In this case, that's not anywhere in this document. So are we approving a quarter section into highway commercial or a specific site? And if it's a specific site, what is the legal address of that specific site? A municipal address is not considered legal in terms of a sale document. So I'm not sure what we're approving. If we're approving a municipal address, a legal address, or a quarter section. So that's what I'm concerned about.
So the legal address is the northwest, 3439-7 west of the 5th. In the actual legal description, it probably, like it would outline, it would provide more detail on that. We've included the civic address as well because the civic address denotes the actual parcel on there.
A civic address could be joined. It's the actual, I just want to make sure that we know what we're approving, what piece of land.
Yes, so
Civic address could be several pieces of land put together with one civic address that they use. I'm just concerned that a quarter section address is a quarter section. This is not a quarter section. I don't know how big it is. So I'm just concerned that the actual application doesn't depict the physical piece of land that we're changing the usage of. So I'm just fearful that this is a moot point in terms of approving something that we're not sure what we're approving.
So that is the legal address. I can provide for you, don't know if that's something we could do right away to not delay the application, or if it's, Mr. Kraus, if you could give me some direction on that.
So, Your Worship, I mean, the land that council's approving is outlined on the drawings and the maps. So that's the specific land that you're approving. It's a remnant of a quarter section, so the title would say meets and bounds, describing the location of it. But so it's not changing the zoning for an entire quarter section.
That's not what the document is before us, though.
Your Worship, through you to Councilor Triple, actually it is. There's maps in here that clearly define the land that's being rezoned.
I appreciate the fact there's maps, but typically there's a lot, block, and plan to a piece of property when
So-
your subdivision occurs in a municipal jurisdiction.
So, but this isn't a subdivided piece of land, it's a remnant of a quarter section.
When they apply for the development permit, will it be transferred then into what Councillor Schippel is? Because Renee said that next step would be a development permit after we do the zoning, right? So then after they do the development permit, would that be apparent then? Because that's when you get your lot, block, and plan, right?
No, you get your lot, block, and plan when you subdivide.
The
This is
legal
not a
address is
subdivision.
correct. Like that is if I pulled a copy of title for this address, or like if I went in and, pulled a copy of title, if you look on SPIN, which is the Alberta Land Titles website, and you click on the subject parcel, that's the legal address that comes up.
Okay, so I think that's not necessary for this public hearing. Counselor Schiffel, would you mind if I kept going? I think Counselor Phillips has a question.
Just some clarification for Councillor Schipholt. Not every parcel will have a lot block plan when it's off of a quarter section like this. This particular one will have a civic address but not a lot block plan because it is off of a quarter. And I think your question is, what's the lot block plan? So if you were to pull title for 7215 60th Street, it would have the description as in a quarter section. So it would have the measurements and dimensions from wherever the surveyor pin is in that location. And it would have the measurements and dimensions to perfectly align this section. So there is no lot block and plan for this particular property.
I'm
Go-
sorry,
go ahead, I
I'm
see it's-
I'm sorry, Your Worship, if I could. to
Yes.
Councillor Phillips. I guess nowhere in this document does it talk about the description. It talks about a quarter section. And I appreciate the fact there's new pictures, but I guess I'm just making sure that what we're approving is exactly what we're to be approving, not a quarter section. If that description was in here, then I'd possibly feel more comfortable knowing exactly what we're approving. I agree with you, there should be a description. I mean, it will outline that area. I mean, every piece of land has an actual legal land description in the quarter section that it lies. But if it's proportionate amount of that quarter section, is there a descriptor to that, is the question.
Renee, do we have that?
I can
your
get it if I pull
documentation?
if I pull title, it will give the legal description, which is the Northwest 34. And then under that legal description, it will say, so many, I don't know, I probably would define it by feet, but so many feet northwest of road plan, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of goes through a description. But the reason that we've included in the maps in the bylaw is that it identifies very clearly the subject parcel that's included. So the maps don't encompass like a full quarter section, it only encompasses the parcel that's registered, like, under this legal description. And it has to be attached to the bylaw, because then it clearly identifies the parcel that's subject, of the bylaw. So we've got the actual legal description here, and we've pulled it up. So the short legal is 5:7, so it's kind of switched. So, but it is Northwest 3439-7 west of the 5th. All that portion of the south half of the northwest quarter lying west of the road plan 5248P like Peter, X like X-ray, and east of road plan 996. Peter X-ray containing 5.955 hectares, 14.72 acres, more or less, excepting thereout all mines and minerals.
Thank you so much for finding that for us. I believe that we can go on at this point. Do we have any other questions?
Your Worship, I'm sorry, I just think that should be included in the permitting process. That's my only concern.
So as part of development permit, we do pull a copy of title to review if there's any registered encumbrances that would impact a development permit. So we do pull title with a development permit application. We also review one, like for the purpose of, like even a land use. We just don't include that information in the public documentation.
I'm sorry, I just want to go back, if I could, Your Worship. My question is, should it be included in this process, that
Description.
That description?
The full description, I don't think that's.
We have maps and stuff, but the maps
Yeah.
aren't surveyed maps, they're just maps, so somehow we have to make sure a map could be out. So I just question the fact that we gotta make sure that we're precise in what we do. And the question I have is, should that have not been included in the package of what we're approving?
Don't know
And
that's
that could be to
typically, I
Mr.
don't
that
know
could
if
be to
that's
Mr.
really
Kraut.
So,
something that's.
Your Worship, just to finalize this issue, so when we look at the bylaw that actually amends, it says the land use bylaw district be amended for the northwest 34, 39, 7 west of the 5th. That could be amended for a portion of that quarter section to make it clear that it's not the entire quarter.
So we can add that to, we could maybe print that off then, so it's included in the approval under the resolution, if that's how council decides to proceed.
Okay, so I believe that we will want that if we proceed. So, so now I'm gonna move forward. There was some correspondence or written submissions, but those don't affect, like, we do have some correspondence out of the 128 letters. You do have some correspondence which is presented, and any, so I guess my next thing that I'm gonna ask, because you've reviewed all that, is there anybody here to speak on the bylaw as submitted? Pardon? For the bylaw. That's not what it says. So, I guess I'll go to number 6. Yes, so I will ask for persons who wish to speak in favor of the bylaw, right?
I don't know.
Okay. So Andrea, please go ahead if you'd like to speak in favor of the bylaw. Thank you. I'm sorry, I just did you Andrea, but thank you, Ms. Bomberg.
My legal name is Garnier.
Okay,
Andrea
sorry.
Garnier.
See, I was better with Andrea. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I'm here today on behalf of my husband's family, Kelly Spongberg and Francis Spongberg, concerning our company's request to rezone Rocky Mountain House property at 7215 60th Street from future development to highway commercial. To provide some history, Kelly's great-grandfather, Dan McLeod, purchased the land in question in 1917 as a homestead, as a full quarter. But it was split off, this property was split off in 1970 when Highway 11 was built. That's how we ended up with this little piece that nobody can seem to find or address properly. So it's an ongoing issue, believe me. The family trucking business was started up by Dan Spongberg, known as Spongberg Enterprises Limited, and employed many local people since 1982. Spongberg Enterprises ceased trucking operations in May of 2018, and the property was leased to Vistar Enterprises Limited. Making the property highway commercial would provide any future owners with certainty regarding their investment. It would also ensure that the town continues to collect significant taxes from the property. In 1991, the town's North Area Structure Plan was approved to provide a framework for the subdivision and development of the land north of 65th Avenue. Our property was planned at that point to be residential and highway commercial. Then, in May 2005, the town of Rocky created and approved the Riverview Outline Plan, which pertains to the area. Our property continued to be planned residential and highway commercial. Here's a quote from the Riverview Outline Plan. Originally, the town acquired land in this area as part of the town's residential land banking activities. The impetus behind preparing an outline plan is to position the town to be able to bring on residential lots over the next several years in response to demand in the local housing market. Only Phase 1A of the plan was completed. Population growth has not reached the estimated targets in the plan. In the 2020 Municipal Development Plan, it stated that, with current growth trends, there is sufficient residential, commercial, and industrial land to support the town over the next 20 years. Therefore, removing our property from the land bank will not have any noticeable consequences to the housing market in Rocky Mountain House. A concern from the town has been the presence of oilfield servicing fluids stored on site. In light of these concerns, a major change is being made in the operations on the property whereby the tanks containing fluids will be moved off-site. This move will also significantly reduce truck traffic, noise, and dust. In preliminary consultation with Alberta Transportation through the RPAS system, they have not raised any concerns with the proposed zoning change since truck traffic will decrease. But yeah, as if that would change, of course, we would go again to Alberta Transportation. Environmental site assessments, Phase 1 and Phase 2 were completed by North Shore Environmental on our property in 2020, and no contamination or concerns were found. We understand we are also needing to add freight and transportation depot to the listed uses for highway commercial. We also understand we may need amendments to the following: Municipal Development Plan 2020, Intermunicipal Development Plan of 2007, North Area Structure Plan of 1994, and the Riverview Outline Plan of 2005. In conclusion, the economic development of our town depends on how current and future businesses are treated by town council and administration. Here you have an opportunity to put economic development desires into practice to ensure that we continue to provide places for people to work and live in harmony. We hope that you will see the value in approving our application. Thank you.
So before I get you, I'll just see if anyone on council has any questions for Andrew. I don't see any questions at this time, so thank you so much
Thank you.
for speaking. So if there's anyone else that speaks in favor, seeing none, I will ask if there's any persons who would like to speak against this bylaw. And I see none. So, if there are, any other speakers, does council have any further technical questions for administration? Okay, so now I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Phillips.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. So that concludes the public hearing portion of today. So moving forward in our agenda, we will do an adoption of the agenda, 4.1. Sorry. Does anybody have any problems with today's agenda as Councillor Hutchinson?
Yeah, I would like to bring a few things forward. I'd like to make a motion that council adopt the November 7th regular council meeting agenda as amended with the additions of correspondence for action, 10.3, introduction to cultural diversity workshop, and 10.4, tourism business forum.
And so, does anyone have any problems with 10.3 and 10.4 being added today? So, do you have copies of all of that for us, Councillor Hutchinson?
They were all given, sent to council as emails, information emails over the past 2 weeks, I believe.
Okay, but you didn't ask Mr. Kraus or administration to provide them for this meeting?
No, I did not.
Okay.
These events are happening on the November 8th and November 9th, and we have had interest from council to go, so I would like them brought to the on the agenda so we can have discussion.
Does anybody have any problems with these? Can you resend them to us? Yes. Sorry. Thank you very much. We'll probably have to shut off that blank one or else it'll get too many mics going and there'll be a problem. Sorry, we'll start again. Does anybody have any problems? Could you please submit those items again? Could you forward that to us right now so we have it in front of us for the discussion?
I believe all of council has received them.
Yeah,
I
excellent.
don't
So
see the point in having to.
could you send it to me because I have 700 emails that I went through in the last 2 weeks. Would you mind doing that so that we can move on with the agenda?
I'll
That's
see
what
if
I'm
I have
asking.
them.
So if they're
It's-
so easily readily available in our agenda, could you please forward them to all of us so that we have the information, or else I'll just say that I vote against them being added to the agenda. Does that make sense to you, how we're going?
That's fair, Mayor. If you
Okay.
wish to not approve them on the agenda, I just would like some council discussion on 2 items. I really don't see that there's a need for you to be opposed or not. It's just 2 items for discussion.
Anybody else have any comments?
Nope, no, if there's no further discussion? I was just gonna make.
She's
a
already
motion.
made the motion, so you can't
can
make a motion.
Okay,
She
I'm-
did it in
I
a
s-
different way. She
I
made
s-
the motion
I
before she
stand
asked
correct-
about the
I stand
items.
corrected.
So the motion on the table is that she accept the agenda as amended, adding 10.3 and 10.4, which apparently we all have somewhere in our emails for discussion. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So today we have a delegation from the Rocky Public Library. So I would ask Ben Worth and MJ Cole to come forward and just remind you to push the red button to turn your mics on.
Well, first of all, Mayor Beach and councillors, thank you very much for having us today and perusing our proposed budget. It's been challenging the last few years, and I finally feel like we're coming out the other side of things. And that's where our budget is directed this year. We're directing it at increasing some of our books and some of our yeah.
Yeah, overall.
That's pretty much where any increase, and our increase that we've asked for is 3.4% this year, and it's basically for that, to increase our collection and to keep it more current than we've been able to do in the last few years, just because of trying to keep things at a low cost. Does anyone have any questions for us or comments?
Councillor Phillips.
Hi.
Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you. So sitting on the library board, I was part of the budget discussions when this was put through. A 3.4% increase is just keeping up with CPI. I mean, that's not making anything large or drastic or increasing beyond CPI. I don't find any reason not to approve this. We did have discussions at the ICC meeting last week, and it was voted on and approved that the ICC committee recommend that the Rocky Library Board budget goes back to both councils as presented. I think this budget is reasonable at 3.4%, and I would definitely approve it for sure.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillips. I think it's very hard to make a budget nowadays with inflation. However, when the excuse of inflation is given to council, I just want to remind everyone that inflation creates inflation. So if we're using inflation to make a higher budget, we're actually creating more inflation for next year for everyone in our area. And if only Trudeau would understand that fact, then the whole world would be a lot better off. So I agree that this is really needed for our community. I just like the, it's for the library, not because of inflation. I mean, we need to address the library. So thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Ben and MJ today? No. Was there anything else you wanted to go through about the budget or programs? You have a few more minutes.
Sure. Yeah, as MJ mentioned, largely looking at our budget for 2024, we're looking, much of the increase we're looking for is towards our materials. So of course, books and all the other items that are available to our community members to access through the library. So over the past few years, in order to ensure that we were able to continue regular operations and all of the other services we offer to the community, that materials budget was restricted quite a bit to present an overall budget that fit within the dynamics of everything happening in our community. So yes, with 2024, it's looking at, okay, at this point, we want to ensure that we are maintaining a current collection of items that are of interest to all of our community members with a diverse range of materials. So that is a major factor in a change to the 2024 budget.
Yeah. Great job. I know how expensive things are becoming. Have you find that a lot more people are uptaking electronic resources with the library? Like I know my family members do that all the time, and I'm in a couple reading groups, and they like to be able to go and get electronic, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Particularly in the last few years, we did see a large increase in our digital resources being accessed by community members. So that is factored into that overall materials increase and making sure we're budgeting appropriately towards digital resources, because those are increasing and continuing to grow in interest in our community. And yeah, of course, we always appreciate feedback from the community in terms of what materials people want access to, whether specific topics, specific formats. So that does factor into how we budget and plan
Yeah.
each year.
Do you see the future of the library with digital being a cost savings? Like I know when you're purchasing books, it's a huge cost savings. Like when you can pay $2.95 for a book versus, or is that just like because you have to provide the equipment, it's not sort of balancing out at this point?
Well, there's actually quite a big difference between what like a personal consumer can buy, through Amazon or
Yep.
whatever venue,
Yep.
Between a physical and a digital product, whereas libraries have to navigate a more complicated issue of licensing.
Okay.
So when we're looking at purchasing digital materials, there actually typically isn't any cost savings. They're usually quite a bit more expensive because publishers understand that if a library is providing access to digital content, like it doesn't have a physical expiry in terms of like a book may wear out and need to be replaced. A digital product doesn't have that. So they usually charge an inflated cost for that digital
okay.
item because it's going to be used again and again without physical degradation.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to me. I was curious how that worked, so that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And then as part of our package to council, I believe you should have received this image, which of course is just a snapshot way of us highlighting, when people think library, books is often the first thing that comes to mind, but we also want to make sure that everyone in our community is aware that we provide so much more than that, that there's physical resources beyond books, as well as all the other services and assistance we provide to community members.
Thank you so much. Councillor Phillips, did you have another question or comment?
No, just to elaborate on the question you had asked about e-content, I also sit on the Parkland Regional Library Board system, and the e-content budget that the Parkland Library Board system has increased exponentially over the years because of the e-content factor that people are now wanting that, but it is quite costly. But that's one of the advantages of the Rocky Library being part of the Parkland Regional Library system, is we can take advantage of that bulk buying power and make that available to the residents.
Thank you. So I just want to say thank you again for coming today and presenting your budget and working so hard for our community to make the library, a feasible place for all of us to enjoy. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, so moving forward in the agenda, we have adoption of previous minutes. 6.1, were there any omissions or errors on those minutes from October 17th? See none, would anybody like to make a motion for 6.1? Councillor Caprero?
I will make a motion that we adopt the regular council meeting minutes of October 17th, 2023.
Yes, and Councillor Caprero, I wanted to say that I forgot to put it on my little blurb at the beginning that Councillor Caprero is now our deputy mayor as of today, and Councillor Boniface gets to hand over the reins. And so, as part of our regular process, and I'm so sorry I didn't do that at the beginning of the meeting, I knew it was today. I knew that today was the day that you get to fully be recognized as the new deputy mayor. So thank you, Deputy Mayor, for your motion. If no one has any further questions or comments about that, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion on the table? And that's carried. 6.2, organizational meeting for October 17th, 2023. Does anybody see any omissions or adjustments to that motion? Counselor Hutchinson?
Yes, under 4.2.12, it states that Counselor Ald and Counselor Chappelt are on the Planning Commission, and it should read myself and Counselor Chappelt appointed to the Municipal Planning Commission, and Mayor Bache is the alternate member.
Thank you very much. We'll have administration fix that up in the minutes. Anything else? Seeing nothing, I'm looking for a motion. Counselor Hutchinson?
I'll make the motion to adopt the August 17th organizational meeting minutes as amended with my changes.
Okay, so October 17th, organizational meeting minutes, just so we're on the same page. I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? Any opposed? And that's carried. So, moving on to delegation business, 7.1, the Rocky Library. I believe that's just going straight to budget. Do we have any other discussions for 7.1? So we'll just accept for information. Should we have a motion to accept for information? Okay,
I will also make that motion, Your Worship, is to accept the library's budget that they're requesting an increase, that go into the budget process. Is that ample?
thank you very much. All in favor of that? If there's any other questions or concerns about that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion? And opposed, and that's none, and that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, the old business, RFD bylaw 2023/13. And we still have Renee and Dean.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I won't go through the report again, but I did make a change to the resolution. That be it resolved that council gives second reading to bylaw 2023/13, a bylaw to amend the municipal development plan, North Area Structure Plan 9401 LU, and land use bylaw 2020-19 as amended by including the detailed description as outlined on the subject parcel's title.
Okay.
Okay?
I just had a question. So after Miss Garnier's comment about that she's finding it hard to get mail deliverable in our community, what process do we have to go through, or do they have to go through to update that land description to a proper lot? Like a
Well,
proper civic address?
so the civic address is on the property. There is a civic address on
Okay.
that property. So if there's problems with mail, we could send something to Canada Post. If it's, I'm not sure if their mail is going to a general delivery box or if it's actually going to that particular site. Canada Post does not do delivery to every site in the town of Rocky Mountain House. Sometimes it goes to a postal, like one of those
They're
community
non-deliverable.
boxes, right? It goes to community boxers, or it goes to like the post office itself, and they have mailboxes there. So I think it maybe just requires a little bit of discussion with the applicant as to what what's the problem,
Okay.
and if they're using that subject site mail address. So
I just thought if
I'll
there
look
were,
into it.
if
for
there
you
was
there.
something we could solve today, to
Yeah.
help the
Yeah.
developer, with a deliverable address.
For sure, and like if there is a problem, then it's a matter of us having a conversation to try and resolve it.
Okay.
So
So we'll have to go back to her and see if there's an issue of what the issue is and
for
see
sure,
if there's something.
yeah.
I just
yeah,
thought,
yeah. So and that's maybe a discussion with Canada Post as well, right?
Okay.
So we'll find out first what the problem is, and then if where the mail is currently going, and then we'll resolve it with Canada Post.
okay. Counselor Chappelle?
I have two questions, if you'd allow me, Your Worship. One is with the map that we have on the drawing, there's an orange section on the map in the south corner of the drawings through all this whole process. What does that designate?
That portion is the local commercial. Are you referring to the drawing on, it would be on the municipal development plan? That little orange box on that southeast portion?
Correct.
Yeah, that's local commercial.
So highway commercial is gonna be the full lot, and so there won't be no local commercial, then that's all gonna blend together?
That's right,
And the red lot at the top is a different landowner?
that's right.
Okay.
And that is already zoned highway commercial.
And do we know how large this area is in terms of acres?
Yes, it was on the description. Can you pull up that?
14.2
Yeah.
acres.
Okay.
And so 1.4 of that would be held in reserve, so is that 10%?
That would be down the road if it was ever subdivided. Like you take, the reserve is registered on title, so if there was a future subdivision, that land would be taken as reserve down the road.
Okay.
So if they never subdivide that, then we never get that reserve land that goes towards schools and stuff?
It would stay on title. You know, I don't know if that's on title into perpetuity. Maybe Mr. Kraus could help me on that.
Could we just, I don't.
Yeah,
need to know today.
I'm really not sure. I know that it gets registered on title, and at the point of subdivision is when reserve is typically taken, so.
But if they never subdivide that, because it's the perfect size for a business, then we would never get our reserves that goes towards schools and hospitals and whatever,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
whatever, how that works. They sometimes give land, and sometimes
Yes.
they, in lieu of land, they give money,
That's right, yeah.
And so that, could you find out for me? I'm fine with it, but I'm curious
If it never was subdivided,
if it
what
was never
happens?
subdivided, what happens to
For
that?
sure. I can look into that, like as an admin inquiry, and we can send out information.
I can ask him, yeah, if you could do that as an inquiry, that would be great, because I'm curious now about, that. So Counselor Phillips?
Yes, I was just gonna make a motion if there's no more discussion.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
So of all the correspondence we got back, Alberta Transportation had put conditions in their correspondence.
That's right.
At what point do we deal with those conditions in that correspondence? Are they just for us to know for in the future, or do they become part of a agreement, or what do we do with those conditions that they've requested?
So the standard conditions, and I actually kind of went through and did a review on the conditions, anticipating that maybe we would get an inquiry on that, so. So one of the conditions is like pursuant to section 618.3 of the MGA, and it talks about the ELSA plan. So currently there is the North Saskatchewan Regional Plan. A draft is in progress, so we don't really have an ELSA plan at this time. So basically what it refers to is that, like an ELSA plan we couldn't do something that would contradict the ELSA plan. Policy 7 of the provincial land use policies refers to transportation and basically consultation with Alberta Transportation and ensuring that there's mitigation regarding any kind of negative interactions with transportation corridors. And that's why they require a roadside development permit when there's any change in use. So with a development permit that would be required after, should this bylaw get passed, they would have to submit a development permit application for the existing use on that site to approve that. That development permit has to go through Alberta Transportation. I'm not sure what kind of detail they would request, but I know that moving those containers, the large dangerous goods containers off-site, would reduce the impact on traffic. Under the current use, with no intensification on that site, Alberta Transportation has noted no concerns. The documentation that's included in the report, just to point out, Alberta Transportation did require that I submit each amendment separately. So I had to do one for the IDP, the MDP, and the North Area Structure Plan. And so the conditions were added under not every approval, but under some of them. Some of the other requirements under the conditions were to submit that any intensification would have to, or any development permit requires a roadside development permit, which allows them to review what's happening on the site. The other thing is that they did talk about a traffic impact assessment may be required for future development. So if they were proposing to put on something that, you know, potentially could intensify the number of vehicles going onto that site, they may be required at that time to do a traffic impact assessment.
Sorry, just a follow-up question if I could, Your Worship. And that is, so they've identified to us they have these conditions. Whose responsibility is to ensure that those conditions are met down the road? Do we have to keep that on file and say, hey, if you ever do anything, we have to make sure this happens? Or does Alberta Transportation somehow, because they got to apply for some permitting, is that where they pick up at it? Or where's I just don't want to have liability on the town's behalf of anything there now that they've addressed it in a letter form to us as a town. Does it fall through the cracks someplace?
So
I don't know.
when they submit a development permit application, we have conditions for the town. Like, we have conditions that we add. One of the conditions is that they need Alberta Transportation approval. So if Alberta Transportation had conditions, that would be their responsibility to ensure those conditions are being met.
And that would be given to you, given to,
We would, like, I would think that we would get a traffic impact assessment, like, we'd get a copy of that, because they do copy us on their approvals. And, you know, we ask that, when we do a development permit application, we have the applicant submit the application, but we do follow up with AT to make sure it's been submitted. And likewise, when they provide an approval, they provide us with a copy of that approval, so.
so it's really up to the developer, in a nutshell. It's up to the developer.
Yeah, the
You just-
responsibility is on the developer to do that, yeah.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Councillor Phillips, I'm gonna go back to you.
Yes, I'll make a motion that council give second reading to amending bylaw 2023/13, a bylaw to amend the municipal development plan, North Area Structure Plan 94/01 LU, and land use bylaw 2020/19 as amended.
And that's got all the
Yeah, and do
Thank
you
you.
want me to repeat the
changes?
as amended, like with the change?
Yes, please.
Okay. As amended by including the detailed description as outlined on the subject property's title. And
Okay.
that detailed description does include the land size, the parcel size.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate all your patience with the questions. So if there's no further questions and there's no concerns about the motion on the table, I will call that, seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of the motion, and those opposed, and that's carried. And did we want to do a third reading today to move this project forward? Councillor Hutchinson, did you have a question?
No, I'd like to make a resolution on that, seeing how there was little or no objection to moving forward with this, be it resolved that council give third and final reading to bylaw 2023/13.
As amended. Does she need it as amended?
As amended.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments about that third reading? Does everybody around the table feel comfortable moving forward? Yes, okay, so I will call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And those opposed, and that's none, and so that's carried.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we will get back to you on the admin inquiry.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Have-
Thank you. So moving forward in the agenda, we have an RFD for the utility master plan offsite levy project costs. Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you today? Great.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. We have the Offsite Levy and Utility Master Plan RFD before you. As requested in the Notice of Decision 2023-202 for the move forward with the Offsite Levy bylaw review. We've gotten two RFPs back. Their total is more than was originally of, so the new totals are $155,064. Council resolved not to exceed $120,000. So we're looking for a decision on that. And if council has any questions or wants any additional clarity, please feel free to ask.
And so do you have any comments on either of the proposals?
Both proposals are very similar in their scope and methodology. They're using very similar modeling softwares and whatnot, so the biggest difference really does come down to price. Because again, they're using similar models, and I have no objection to either one of these companies should they be the successful candidate. So they're both very strong proposals, I guess, is how I would word it.
So, Mr. Kraus, this is a question for you. Could we make the resolution for the exact amount of the proposal, or do you think we should still stick with the 160,000?
Your worship, there is a little bit of contingency in there. I think the actual tender price was 155 somewhere, right?
Yes, that's what I'm asking, so we need the contingency in there? It's another $5,000 on the budget, right? Between 160 and 155, 164.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chappelle?
Your worship, we need to get this right. That's for sure. It's contingent for a lot of things we're doing. I think that we should move ahead with this document, and I'd be prepared to make that motion and we move ahead. One thing I do want to ask is if they give us comparisons from what other communities do in this document. It talks about Rocky Mountain House in here, but it doesn't talk about comparisons. And sometimes when you get a report, it's good to see what other communities do for some of this stuff, especially when it comes to costing items out. So I'm just wondering if,
So, your worship, the sub-consultant that's doing the offsite levy, in that offsite levy report is comparisons to other municipalities.
perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. So then I'd make a motion that we move forward with this and unfortunately increase the cost from 120,000 up to 160,000. And I'm not sure if this becomes a budget issue down the road or if we just move ahead with the program and find the money someplace, or Mr. Kraus?
Yeah,
what-
so-
I believe, and sorry, it would just correct me if I'm wrong, so I know my understanding of how the process works. Once we make the resolution and we pass it, it goes into the budget?
So, no, your worship.
Okay,
So I just want clarification for council. So council, Shipple, you originally put forward a motion for us to do the offsite levy. We put a budget of $120,000 to the offsite levy. Administration came back and said there's cost savings if we actually do our utility master plans at the same time as the offsite levy. So that's what raised the price. It wasn't, we didn't under budget before. And so now what we're asking for is to proceed with this project for $160,000, and that money will come out of unrestricted surplus or reserve this year. So it's not going into 2024 budget. We'll be proceeding now with this.
Then I-
Councillor Chappelle.
So my motion would read that we fund this and that the monies would come from the unrestricted surplus,
The 40,000.
the 40,000, and we move forward with the program.
Yeah, so, your worship, the way we put our recommendation is council's actually rescinding the old resolution for 120 and putting forward a new motion for 160. So,
So, do you want me to read it right? Do you want to, could you adjust your motion? Do you have it in front of you? I have it here.
I do have it in front of me.
So you're just going to amend your motion and read what it says there on the paper. Right?
What it says here isn't quite what we've, so
It is
if-
on page 6, right?
yes.
yeah, and so the purpose of us rescinding the previous resolution, because the resolution was just to do an offsite levy review. It wasn't to do offsite levy review and utility master plan. So it's just
Gotcha.
resetting.
Okay, I got the motion. And that's, so I'd resolve the council rescind the resolution 2023-202, and that administration proceed with the utility master plan and offsite levy bylaw with funds coming from unrestricted surplus not to exceed 160,000.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of Councillor Chappelle's motion? And any opposed? And that's none, and so that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so moving forward in the agenda, that concluded 8.2, and now we're at 8.3, council discussion of the Rocky Taxpayers Association residential waste request. Sorry, I thought I had some documents in front of me. I have nothing to get me started. Just a moment. Thank you. So, the letter was that there's been a number of requests that are unanswered. And that on the 4th, they met with everyone. They came as a delegation, and they still have some questions. Not really sure where I'm going with this for today. Mr. Kraus, would you?
Yeah, so your worship, when the Rocky Taxpayer Association was a delegation, you yourself asked them to resend this email so council can go through the questions
Right.
and address them.
So the first question, as of the fiscal year ending 2022, what is the variance related to? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
So your worship, maybe I'll go through the questions and provide
That would be
them.
handy because
So
I don't have it in front of me.
So the first question of the fiscal year, so to be honest, you know, that question has been answered to the Taxpayers Association. I met with Mr. Stalker personally. We went through the budget line by line. And I also advised him that what we just went through is also on our website. So the answers to those questions have already been provided to Mr. Stalker of the Taxpayers Association. In question 2, they're looking for costs going way back to 2017, so 6 years ago. That would be a FOIP request. That would take our staff time to go back into the financial records, pull out the records and stuff. So that would be a FOIP request. It's not like a routine disclosure for them to obtain the information under our policy. That would be a FOIP request. And that's the same for question number 3. They're looking for records going back to 2017. That would also, under our policy, be a FOIP request for that information. In question 4, again, that's going back into records. So that would also be a FOIP request for going back into the records. Though I did sit with Mr. Stalker and actually answered quite a few of those questions, especially when we were doing the open house and the cost savings and how those cost savings came about from the Regional Waste Authority to moving to just a town waste system.
So do you think that his repeated request for this is because he would like to see it in writing? Or is it because we're not giving him enough detail back in history?
Your worship, that's up to council to decide how they want to respond. I'm just providing you with what has been done to date.
Councillor Ald?
So as far as council discussion, I am quite comfortable with what administration has provided to the RTA. And if the additional requests fall under FOIP, that is exactly the avenue they should go through. I don't know why we would make an exception in this area. If this is the information they want, there's a system there, so I would consider this a closed matter.
Does anybody else have any comments? So, like, they are saying that they haven't received this information. Would it be possible to take time without going into FOIP and reply in writing the information that you've already given them? And then anything further than the information that you've already given them and previously discussed with them, they could ask for as a FOIP request? Would that be a reasonable way to resolve this, Mr. Kraus?
So your worship, the information that I have gave them is already readable on our website in the budget. So I went through the budget with Mr. Stalker, showed him the expenses, showed him where the deficit where it was and so forth. And that document is on the website. So other than duplicating the 2023 budget, the information is there.
Does anybody else, Counselor Boniface?
Thank you, Your Worship. This question is for Mr. Kraus. Are there other years available online or only our current budget year? Because if there's other years available, perhaps they can be directed to find that information themselves online.
Your Worship, Ms. Button will verify how many past year budgets we have. 20.
Okay, so if we could,
Financial statements dating back to 2011 are also online.
so to move forward, do we want to write a letter in reply? Would we like administration to write a letter? I'm fine if we have administration write a letter and we all sign it on behalf of us. How does council feel like moving forward with this matter? Just write a letter saying that everything's available online, and if you have any further questions, we feel comfortable that Mr. Kraus has answered them. Everything else that you're looking for is a FOIP request, and then have administration write that letter up. I'll sign it on behalf of everybody and move forward, or what, Councillor Boniface?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that's it exactly. I think we asked administration to draft a letter and send it on our behalf, saying that the information was discussed in person with Mr. Kraus. Other information is online, and if they want further than that, it's a FOIP request, and they'll have to go through that procedure.
Okay. Would you like to make that into a motion? You could just say, I'd like to have administration.
I'd like to make a motion to have administration draft a letter and send to the Rocky Taxpayer Association concerning the availability of online information, and FOIP, anything further than that would be a FOIP request.
And that would be on behalf of council, right? That we feel comfortable, do we want to, yeah, do you have the majority of what our thought is behind the letter, Mr. Kraus? You're comfortable with that? Okay. Any further questions or comments about the, I have to wait till you're done typing are you close? Okay, so with that motion on the table, does anybody need to see it on the screen, or are we okay with the verbally what Councillor Boniface has described? Okay, I'll call that to a vote then. All in favor of the motion on the table? Any opposed? And that's carried. So that concludes 8.3. So today we have no new business. So moving forward in the agenda, we're at 10.1, request to waive facility fees for the 2023 Remembrance Day ceremony from the Legion. So that's taking place Saturday at the Lousopit. And normally we do this, but it has to be a budget item. Am I explaining that correctly?
Your Worship, it just needs council's approval to waive a fee. So.
Okay. Councillor Phillips?
I am in full support of waiving this fee. You know, the Legion is taking on Remembrance Day and running that ceremony, and I believe that, you know, in the spirit of Remembrance Day and remembering our fallen soldiers and those that served our country, we should waive these fees.
Did you want to make a motion at this time?
I would happily make that motion that we waive the fees for the Remembrance Day service at the Lousopit Center for the Legion.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on the motion on the table? No questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And those opposed? None, and that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, we're at 10.2, request for letter of intent for Varme Energy. So what's happened there is that Varme Energy came to us maybe a year ago and did a presentation. So they're working with the city of Innisfail, town of Innisfail, to put in a waste to energy facility. And part of that process is to get letters of intent from municipalities surrounding Innisfail. I think this is a really interesting and moving forward, environmentally friendly process to deal with waste that is outside of the stream of being recycled or being composted. So we're doing a lot of work towards that, and I'm just, Sylvan Lake has just signed on as a partner, and so I'm just wondering to see if our council has any comments about that. Councillor Capero, or Deputy Mayor Capero, and then I'll go to Councillor Phillips.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, because I know at the time when they had come, we were all kind of wondering costs. Like, has that been given at all before we send a letter of intent that says we're committing to it?
So I don't know if Mr. Kraus has anything, but he's mentioned a couple of times, because I did attend the first presentation at the city of Innisfail with the mayor's quarterly group. And he says the costs are going to be really close to the same as what we're currently spending on landfill, only it doesn't go to landfill. It goes into energy. And so it's not that it's any kind of a cost savings. They don't have all their numbers 100% worked out, but they think that the cost will be probably the same, only the benefit is different, right? So you're going to pay the same amount, only it's not going to go into a hole, you know, on the way to Nordig. It's going to go, you know, to energy. So if that answers. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, my question was quite along the lines of Deputy Mayor Capero. Just wondering if the tipping fees for this is going to be the same as what we have at the landfill. And also, just checking with, when we have Empringham doing our disposal, is it going to the Rocky landfill, or is it sometimes going to other landfills, so it's just going to Rocky? Because there may be a different mileage going from Rocky to Innisfail for...
Yeah, we would only pay the mileage going out to the Clearwater Regional Landfill.
Okay. Thank you.
Just before I go to Councillor Auld, along that same line, when is our, because we have exit ramps with Empringham because of the EPR stuff, right, for some things, or when would that expire? Because we couldn't give a letter of intent if we're currently in a contract for 10 years, right? Mr. Kraus? Like, we could say, we'll do it in 10 years, but
I'm not sure how EPR plays into this.
Well, like we talked about our EPR and all the changes that's gonna happen with Empringham's contracts, right?
In related to recycling, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So are there exit ramps for this type of project because of environmental reasons, or just for recycling due to EPR?
No, I mean, our waste is just a curbside pickup, right? So that contract I think it expires in 2 years.
So we could, if we wanted to, write say that we would interested in looking at it in 2 years, if we agreed, only if we agreed, right?
This is entirely up to council. Council's had this discussion before, and
Yeah.
in the previous discussion, council was saying just the hauling costs would make it more costly for our residents to go into this venture than what we pay now.
And do we know that for sure?
Well, hauling costs are hauling costs, right?
So you said-
Innisfail's further than the landfill, so it
Okay.
would cost us more.
Councillor Auld?
I'm just gonna comment that I think would be premature to sign a letter of intent with Farm. Once they have all their information, but just from what they've given us, it's definitely gonna be a cost increase to our residents, so I wouldn't be in favor of setting any letter of intent until we have all the numbers in front of us.
Counselor Chappelle, and then I'll go back to Counselor Phillips. He's already spoken once.
I'm with Councillor Ald on this one. I think that we are premature. The other thing is if somebody was to build a plant next to Rocky Mountain House and we've signed a letter of intent saying, hey, it's going in Innisfail. If we were to sign a letter of intent, I would like to see some kind of condition in there that gives us an exit out of that letter of intent, which is then really not a letter of intent. So I think, as Councillor Ald has said, I think we should just hang in there. The other thing is we do have the Recycling Council of Alberta coming in January, and it may be prudent to wait and see what they have to tell us. At the convention, we heard all kinds of unique things that people are coming up with, so I think it would be prudent to wait till then and possibly just accept this as information at this point.
Thank you. Counselor Phillips?
Yeah, I would echo Councillor Ald and Councillor Schipholz's sentiments on this. I'd like to see more firm pricing. I don't know our exact tonnage right now, our tipping fees, but we're probably around $100 a ton. Roughly about there, but I'd like to see what the tipping fees would be for this project. Whether it's 100 or 90 or 110, it would make a difference on what we would want to do. And I don't think EPR isn't going to affect our decision on this because we're talking about waste only. We're not talking about recycling or
No, I just meant the
anything else.
contract.
Oh.
So sometimes you make a contract with a lot of exit agreements because of the upcoming EPR. It has shorter end dates, right? So I was just really looking for the end of our
Okay.
contract date, not to be confused with recycling.
Okay. And I'd like to see what their business model is on tonnage, because plants like this operate on tonnage, and they need a certain amount of tonnage in order to make their plants work. So if there's not enough buy-in from municipalities, it may up the tipping fees of taking waste there. So I just need more information before feeling comfortable in making a decision like this.
Yep, perfect. Counselor Hutchinson?
This is pretty much the same conversation we had in December of 2022. I think what I would like to see the town do, or us do, is put some measures in place for our waste goals. We've got 2 years left on the contract with Empringham right now. What are we going to do in the next 2 years to reduce our garbage going, whether it be to a landfill or to a facility like this, and giving us that time to promote and make changes to the community based on that, and maybe revisit this after or closer to the end of our contract date with Empringham.
So yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to bring it up because Sylvan Lake has signed on as a partner, and the project, if we can get in, the project, I just think, for the benefit of the earth as we know it, the things that can't be diverted through the current EPR programs and recycling and composting, that I personally would think that we should look at projects like this that turn it into energy rather than into landfill. And this is just a project that we could look at. I want to feel what everybody feels about something like this. If we need more information, maybe we should get more information. But if we have only 2 years left on our contract, the more people that sign up for Innisfail's project, then the sooner it can move forward and be reality. And so that's what they're looking for today. Now, if we have a contract that was, say, 10 years, like maybe the city of Red Deer has, they need about 100,000 people is what their original thing is. And I'm just speaking for what I remember from the previous thing, but I'm fine with whatever we decide. If we would like more information so we can make better decisions, but, if looking ahead 2 years is like tomorrow, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take very long for 2 years to snap by. Councillor Chappelle?
Your Worship, the Sylvan Lake letter really has an out in at the very last line, says based on successful negotiations. So even Sylvan Lake, although they've given a letter, really have not given a letter of intent. I mean, it looks pretty from the top end, not
Yeah.
so pretty. So, I mean, if we want to go that route, we can. I just see it's a mute subject. I mean, it's either a letter of intent or it's not. Sylvan Lakes is a letter of intent that's really not.
Okay.
So I think in this case, where Councillor Ald was, I'm there. I
Okay.
mean, let's not waste administration's time to do a letter that is really got no meat and potatoes.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So we'll need Counselor Ald.
There's no other questions or discussion. I would make a motion that council postpone the decision on the Varm Energy Inc. proposal until after we get more hard numbers from Varm in the coming years.
Thank you very much. That sounds great. Any questions or comments about that motion? Seeing none, I'll put that to vote. All in favor of that motion? And any opposed? And that's carried. So now we're at 10.3. Counselor Hutchinson, can you tell us what it is again, please?
The Cultural Diversity Workshop that was scheduled for September 6th and 7th. It was scheduled for a 2-day shift type program, and that was rescheduled to November 8th. The second invite I had forwarded to all of you as per the mayor's request, and I believe Councillor Caprero and myself are attending, and Councillor Phillips. Okay, so there's more than just for clarity, for staff to have a resolution come forward to have council support the people who are attending. It's collaboration and communication, which is part of our strategic plan, and I think it's an important presentation, that workshop that the four of us are attending. So, like I said, I would like to have that as a resolution so that we can be reimbursed for it.
Mr. Kraus, wouldn't that be part of our training budget?
It could be, your worship, but council could just pass a resolution, then there's no question.
And then would it come on top of our training budget?
No, it would come out of the training budget.
Okay, thank you for clarification. Any questions or comments? Would you like to make a resolution?
So I'd like to make a resolution that Councillor Chappelle, Phillips, Caparo, and Hutchinson attend the Cultural Diversity Workshop on November 8th.
Perfect. Seeing no further questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And that's none opposed, and that's carried. Thank you very much. So do we have 10.4?
So the Chamber is putting on a tourism business forum on November 9th with local businesses and tourism partners. I just wanted clarity on that one. I had attended one in Sylvan Lake, which by resolution was paid for, and I believe Councilor Capera and I had attended another one which was not reimbursed for. So discussion amongst council if this is something that we are just participating on our own, or if it's something that would come out of training budget as well. So I'd just like some discussion on what people's thoughts are. It's fine either way, just clarity needs to come forward.
So I know when I asked to take a course the other day from Mr. Kraus, he said, I don't know if it's really in our purview to take a tourism business forum. It's not necessarily training to be a counselor, but I'm not opposed to anyone attending if they want to. Counselor Phillips?
To me, this is, yes, it's training for sure, because we always learn valuable information at these events, but it's also a way for council to show our business community and our tourism operators that we're here to support them and encourage them and make a better region for our tourism. So to me, this is a good way of council showing support for our businesses by attending this, and I do believe that this should be reimbursed because it's an all-day event.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Would anyone like to make a resolution at this time?
Sure. I'll make a resolution that any council members that want to attend the tourism event on November 9th, I believe, November 9th, are able to attend, and that will fall under the council remuneration policy.
Thank you very much. So if there's no further questions or comments on that motion, I'll call that to a vote. All in favor of that motion? And those opposed, none, and that's carried. So, correspondence for information. Yeah, I was just gonna accept all of this and then do break. Is there anything that we want to pull out of correspondence for information to bring to anyone's attention? So could I just get a motion to accept 11.1 to 11.17 that we've received letters, 17 letters today? Counselor Boniface?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will make the motion to accept 11.1 to 11.17, 17 letters for information purposes.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So now would be a great time to have a break. So we'll take a 10-minute recess. Thank you very much. Yes. Sorry, that was a yes. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the Town of Rocky Mountain House regular council meeting for November 7th of 2023. And moving forward in the agenda, we have 12.1, the mayor's report. And so did anybody have any questions or comments about the mayor's report today? Seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion? Councillor Boniface.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will make the motion to accept the mayor's report as presented.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda, 12.2, councillor reports. Councillor Boniface, did you want to do a verbal one today?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I attended 2 council meetings from the month of October. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Caprero, did you want to make any questions or comments on your report? Oh, I'm sorry, I've missed Councillor Ald. Did you want to do a verbal report today, Councillor Ald?
No, there's nothing to note.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Caprero, please.
Oh, that's okay. I don't have anything unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Hutchinson,
Just a few things to note. I do have reports in there for the AB Muni Conference and the RCA Conference, but the Rocky Community Learning Council put on a professional learning course, and it was Learning to Unlearn. And it was quite unique in the way that it teaches you how to open your minds to unlearn self-limiting beliefs, to see opportunities and potentials. So it was a 2.5-hour course. It was something that the director there had won at one of the other conferences she went to. So there was about 8 of us attending. It was really good. With RCLC, there are 24 Ukrainian learners right now registered in their program. The HCA, the healthcare assistant, and the LPN courses are looking at fall 2024 registration. They've got the SAGE level 1 and 2 courses, and always looking for new ideas or anything that may come up that people may want. And I think everything else, if anybody reads the reports and wants any information, let me know.
thank you very much, Councillor Hutchinson. I'll go to, seeing no questions or comments, I'll go to Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, my report's here, if anyone has any questions on it. The one thing that I did do as a Community Futures had a diversity training on women in business. And it was quite enlightening to see the challenges and opportunities that women have in business, and just how different it is than, a predominantly male-dominated venture. So it was quite an eye-opening thing to see the challenges that women face when they're opening businesses and receiving funding for it.
Thank you very much. Seeing no questions or comments, I'll go to Councillor Chappelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. My report is there. If anybody has any questions, it's pretty self-explanatory. It went into detail on most of the stuff, so feel free to ask questions if you should have any.
Thank you very much. So at this time, seeing no other questions or comments, I'll make a motion to accept for information all of the council reports. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. So moving forward in the agenda today, we're at 13.1 for the action list, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Your Worship. So going through it, Code of Conduct bylaw review, that's scheduled for the January Committee of the Whole meeting. Council's procedural bylaw, that is scheduled for the November 28th Committee of the Whole meeting. It's actually drafted and ready to go for Council's review. And then the criminal record checks, that's being reviewed with Council at the service level as we go through all of our fees and rates. And then for a bylaw amendment in December for it to become effective January if Council so chooses.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the action list? Councillor Chappelle, your light is on. It just didn't like to turn off today. So I see no questions or comments. I'll make a motion to accept for information the action list for November 7th, 2023. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Confirmation of the committee of the whole meeting. So can go next on the agenda because we've rearranged things due to the meetings next week. Do we have any administrative inquiries? Counselor Phillips.
Yes, just a quick one. I was driving into town late last night, and I just noticed coming into town on the south end of town, the Welcome to Rocky sign, the trees are starting to get a little more mature there. I'm just wondering, is that something that we can do, or is that a Alberta transportation thing?
And I look for Mr. Shanks to nod at me as I answer you, but those trees, I believe, are on private property, and the landowner does not want us to trim them.
Isn't there a bylaw surrounding signs? If you have a sign, then your trees have to be trimmed? Like if it's in front of a stop sign or a highway sign?
This isn't a traffic sign. This is the Welcome to Rocky sign.
Right.
Yeah.
But would it not,
No.
would it not apply to a town? Oh, that's strange. That is unfortunate. I have an administrative inquiry today. I had a citizen who was a customer at the time come up to me and ask me about the heat when you're a viewer of a hockey game at our arena. So I am not familiar with how that works, but he asked me if we were going broke because they're never turned on, and haven't we paid the power bill? Was exactly how he said it to me. So I just was curious about what is the policy for that, and has there been complaints? He says compared to the 10 other arenas that he generally visits, ours never has heat on. Because I asked him if it was like a specific thing. He's got 4 kids in hockey, and so it was just like, have we had problems with our heat?
Our heaters are all working fine. They are set on a temperature thermostat, so when the temperature gets below a set temperature is when they become available. When it gets to that point, the spectators go up and push a button at the top of the bleachers, hold the button for 10 seconds, and that ignites the tube heaters.
Do you think the set temperature is too cold for these people who are spectators?
There's a
Like-
balance there between the heat that we put on there and how it spills over onto the ice surface, when that close to the area. So the temperatures we use, I know in my other community that I worked in, was the same. And our facility operators, they touch base and they review those types of things. So yeah, they're set similar to what other communities have in place.
Okay, I don't know anything about that, so I thought I would ask properly, and I said, well, you could write an email, or nope, he wanted to talk to only someone on council, so I thought I would bring that just for him, so I've looked into it. Thank you so much for your information, I appreciate that. Does anybody else have any other administrative inquiries? Do we have any notices of motion today? Deputy Mayor Caprero.
Thank you. I do have one if council will entertain me for a moment here. I have written everything down, so I'm just going to read off of my notes. So my notice of motion is to instruct admin to reach out to our service providers, ATCO, Fortis, TELUS, to come to council to provide a working plan to facilitate new growth to town. So the town is taking measures to attract new growth and development, so it may be advantageous to meet with our service providers to ensure smooth interactions with developers, business owners, and to ensure utilities can be dealt with in a timely manner and discuss ways to cut red tape and just ensure an overall positive experience when developing within our municipality. I just think it would be nice to have that conversation with them and see how they feel things go, and if there's anything the municipality can do to help them, and just have that discussion.
So, Mr. Kraus, you regularly meet with some of those, like I know we meet with,
No,
is
Your
it
Worship.
EPCOR or ATCO or?
No, Your Worship, I mean, administration meets with the utility providers, but I mean, it's basically on operations not future development. And this is a notice of motion, so it'll go to the next council meeting, and I think the request is for them to present to council.
Okay. Perfect. Are there any other notices of motion? Councillor Chappelle.
I have one, Your Worship, and I would like to, Kevin and Joanna brought me information regarding their house fire that they had at the north end of town, that is sort of contrary to some of the decision we made about them getting a rebate on their municipal taxes. And I'd like to bring that forward at the next meeting, if council would allow me to relook at the information that they provided me, including letter from their insurance company, stuff such as that. And they just think that their situation's different, and so I would like to revisit that at our next council meeting, if at all possible. And I'm not sure if that's a notice of motion
Yep.
item or not,
Yep,
Mr.
it is.
Kraus.
So, Your Worship, so that'd be a notice of motion, and what council would consider is if they want to reconsider the motion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Do we have any other notices of motion? Seeing none, I believe, Mr. Kraus, how many people should I do a recess now to clear the room to make it easier? Then maybe I'll do that. I'll just recess for a few moments, say 5. Thank you very much. So we're back to November 7th, 2023, and we have some closed session items today, so I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session. Council, Deputy Mayor Caprero.
I will make that motion to move into closed session.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And none opposed, and that's carried.
I'm not gonna. Thank you. So we are back from closed session, so we have a couple of motions here, so I will look to Counselor Shipalt.
Okay, let it be resolved, I'll make a motion if you would allow me.
Sure.
Your worship, deputy mayor, whatever, okay. Let it be resolved, the council appoint Jordan Nielsen as a council designate to replace Mayor Beach, and Tracy Clark as a public member to fill the vacant public member positions on the Rocky Mountain Clearwater County Health Professionals Engagement Team, and the term expiring at the organizational meeting in 2024.
Okay, thank you for your motion. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. And then we have Counselor Phillips with another motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Caprero. I'd like to make a motion that we instruct administration to start the process for the MR disposal of 0.54 acres on Lot 2 MR, Lot 1, Plan 8322979, with the public hearing to be held on December 5th, 2023.
Thank you for your motion. Do we have any discussion on that? Okay, so I'll call that to a favor, or vote, sorry, all in favor? And none opposed, that is carried. That concludes our business for today, so we will adjourn at